Hey, before we start, I want you to do something for me. Just pause for a second. Take a breath. Whatever you were doing before you pressed play, whatever stress, whatever noise was running through your head, just let it go for now. Because what you're about to hear might quietly change the way you see yourself. And I mean that. Have you ever promised yourself you'd wake up early, eat better, work out more, read more books, be more focused, and then a week later, you're back to the same old routine? Yeah, me too. We've all been there. That frustrating cycle of starting strong and fading fast. You set a goal, you feel fired up for a few days, and then life happens. The alarm rings, and you hit snooze. The gym bag stays in the corner. The journal collects dust. And the worst part? You start blaming yourself. You think something's wrong with you, that you're lazy, that you just don't have enough discipline. But what if I told you the problem was never you? What if the real issue was never about motivation, willpower, or talent? What if everything you've been struggling with comes down to one invisible thing you never even thought to question? Your system? That's exactly what this journey is about. This is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And trust me, this isn't just another self-help book filled with empty promises and morning routine hacks. This is something different, something deeper, something that works. Because it's not about doing more. It's about understanding how change actually happens, quietly, slowly, and powerfully, through the smallest actions you can imagine. So come with me. Let's walk through this together. Not rushing, not forcing, just understanding. And by the end, I think you'll see yourself in a completely new light. Chapter 1. The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you're standing in a cold room. There's a block of ice sitting on a table in front of you. The temperature is slowly climbing. 26 degrees. Nothing. 27. Still nothing. 28. 29. 30. The ice just sits there, frozen, unchanged. You're putting in effort. You're watching closely, but nothing seems to be happening. And then, at 32 degrees, something shifts. A single drop of water rolls down the side. The ice begins to melt. Not because of that one final degree, but because of every single degree that came before it. Has that ever happened to you? You work hard for weeks, maybe months, and see absolutely zero results. You start questioning everything. You wonder if it's even worth it. And then suddenly, almost out of nowhere, something clicks. People start noticing. Things start falling into place. And everyone around you calls it an overnight success. But you know the truth. You know it was never overnight. It was all those invisible days of showing up when nobody was watching. That's what James Clear calls the plateau of latent potential. It's that long, frustrating stretch between effort and visible results. And it's exactly where most people give up. They're at 31 degrees, 1 degree away from the breakthrough, and they quit. Not because the method didn't work, but because they couldn't see the progress that was silently building beneath the surface. And here's something that might surprise you. Clear makes a bold claim in this chapter that honestly shook me when I first heard it. He says, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." Let that land for a second. Think about it. Everyone has goals. The athlete wants gold. The student wants straight A's. The entrepreneur wants a thriving business. Goals are universal. But results? Results are rare. Why? Because goals don't separate winners from losers. Systems do. A goal is the result you want. A system is the collection of daily habits that lead to that result. If you're a runner, your goal might be finishing a marathon. But your system is your weekly training schedule, your sleep routine, your diet. Without the system, the goal is just a wish. And here's the part that really gets me. Clear points out that goals can actually work against you. Think about it. When you say, I'll be happy once I lose 20 pounds, or I'll feel successful once I get that promotion, you're basically telling yourself happiness is somewhere in the future. You're postponing joy. But when you fall in love with the system, the daily process, you find satisfaction every single day. You stop chasing a finish line and start enjoying the run. Does that resonate with you? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, I'll be happy when... I think most of us have. And that's exactly the trap Clear wants us to escape. Now here's where it gets even more powerful. Clear introduces the idea that habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Just like money grows exponentially over time with compound interest, your habits work the same way. If you improve by just 1% each day, by the end of 1 year, you won't be twice as good. You'll be 37 times better. That's not a metaphor. That's actual math. But the reverse is also true. Slip by 1% each day, and your skills, health, relationships, they all erode, slowly, invisibly, until one day you look up and wonder how you got so far off track. That's why small habits are never neutral. They're always compounding, either for you or against you. Every cigarette, every skipped workout, every mindless scroll, but also every page you read, every glass of water, every moment of presence, they're all adding up. So as Chapter 1 closes, here's the quiet truth you need to carry with you. Your outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits. Your bank account reflects your financial habits. Your body reflects your eating and exercise habits. Your knowledge reflects your reading habits. If you want different results, don't chase the outcome. Change the system that precedes it. Chapter 2. How your habits shape your identity. Okay, so here's where things get really interesting. And honestly, this chapter changed the way I think about change itself. Most of us, when we want to transform something in our lives, we start with the behavior. We say things like, I'm going to work out 5 times a week, or I'll stop eating junk food, or I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. And we try. We really do. But sooner or later, we fall back into old patterns. Sound familiar? James Clear says there's a reason for this, and it goes much deeper than we realize. According to him, real lasting change doesn't start with what you do. It starts with what you believe about yourself. Picture 3 circles, one inside the other, like the rings of a tree. The outer ring represents outcomes, the results you want. The middle ring represents processes, the habits and routines you follow. And the innermost ring, that's identity, who you believe you are. Most people work from the outside in. They focus on the goal, try to change the behavior, and hope their self-image eventually catches up. But Clear flips this entirely. He says, true transformation works from the inside out. Start with identity. Become the person first. Then the habits naturally follow. Here's a powerful example. Imagine 2 people trying to quit smoking. Someone offers them a cigarette. The first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." Can you feel the difference? The first person still sees themselves as a smoker fighting temptation. The second person has already shifted their identity. They're not resisting. They're simply being who they are. Have you ever felt stuck in an old version of yourself? Like you keep telling yourself, I'm not disciplined, or I always give up, or I'm just not that kind of person. Here's the thing. Those aren't facts. They're stories. Stories you've repeated so many times they started to feel like truth. But they're not. They're just habits of thought. And the beautiful thing about habits is they can rewrite those stories. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. One workout is a vote for being athletic. One page of reading is a vote for being a learner. One healthy meal is a vote for being someone who respects their body. One moment of patience is a vote for being calm. No single vote will transform you. But as those votes accumulate, day after day, week after week, the evidence of your new identity becomes undeniable. You don't have to be perfect. You just need a majority. James Clear offers a simple two-step process. First, decide who you want to become, not what you want to achieve, who you want to be. Second, prove it to yourself with small wins. Want to be a writer? Write one sentence today. Want to be healthy? Take a short walk. Want to be mindful? Sit in silence for 60 seconds. That's it. That's how identity is built. Not through grand declarations, but through tiny, consistent actions. And here's what I find most beautiful about this idea. When your habits are rooted in identity, motivation becomes almost unnecessary. You don't wake up every morning debating whether to go for a run. You just think, I'm a runner, and you lace up your shoes. There's no internal battle, no negotiation, just alignment between who you are and what you do. Isn't that what we all want? To stop fighting ourselves and just flow? Chapter 3, How to Build Better Habits in 4 Simple Steps. All right, now that we understand the power of small habits and the role of identity, let's get practical. Because knowing why habits matter is one thing. Knowing how they actually work inside your brain, that's where the real magic happens. Think about something you do every single day without even thinking about it. Brushing your teeth, reaching for your phone, pouring that first cup of coffee, flipping the light switch when you walk into a dark room. These actions happen almost automatically. You don't sit there analyzing whether to do them. You just do. But why? What makes these behaviors so effortless? James Clear explains that every habit, good or bad, follows the same 4-step pattern. This is the habit loop, and once you understand it, you can start designing your life with real intention. Here are the 4 steps. First, there's the cue, something that triggers the behavior. Then comes the craving, the desire or motivation behind it. Next is the response, the actual behavior you perform. And finally, the reward, the satisfaction that tells your brain, remember this. Let me give you a quick example. You walk into a dark room. That's the cue. You want to be able to see. That's the craving. You flip the light switch. That's the response. The room lights up and you can see clearly. That's the reward. Simple, right? But here's where it gets powerful. James Clear takes this neurological loop and transforms it into a practical framework he calls the 4 laws of behavior change. And honestly, if you remember nothing else from this entire book, remember these 4 laws. They're the skeleton key to building any good habit and breaking any bad one. Law number 1, make it obvious. You can't act on a habit you don't notice. If you want to drink more water, put a full bottle on your desk where you can see it. If you want to read before bed, place the book on your pillow. Visibility is everything. When the cue is right in front of you, starting becomes effortless. Law number 2, make it attractive. We're naturally drawn to things that feel appealing. So pair your habit with something you enjoy. Listen to your favorite music while working out. Brew a special tea before your writing session. When a habit is linked to pleasure, your brain wants to repeat it. Law number 3, make it easy. This is huge. Reduce the friction. Simplify the steps. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for showing up. Want to start meditating? Start with 1 minute. Want to write a book? Start with 1 sentence. Momentum always matters more than intensity at the beginning. Law number 4, make it satisfying. Your brain needs to feel good about what just happened. Track your progress. Check off a box. Give yourself a small reward. When a habit feels satisfying right after you do it, your brain says, let's do that again. And here's the flip side, because this framework works in reverse too. If you want to break a bad habit, invert each law. Make it invisible, hide the cue. Make it unattractive, remind yourself of the consequences. Make it difficult, add friction and extra steps. Make it unsatisfying, create accountability and consequences. Want to stop scrolling mindlessly? Delete the app or log out every time? Want to cut back on junk food? Stop keeping it in the house. Want to reduce TV time? Unplug it after each use and put the remote in a drawer. Can you see how this changes the game? You're not relying on willpower anymore. You're not white-knuckling your way through the day. Instead, you're designing your environment and your systems so that good behavior becomes the path of least resistance. That's brilliant, isn't it? James Clear keeps coming back to one idea that ties everything together. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And these 4 laws, they are your system. So here's my question to you. Which of these 4 laws do you struggle with the most? Is it making things obvious? Making them attractive? Easy? Satisfying? Think about it. Because once you identify where the chain breaks, you can fix it. And once you fix it, everything starts to shift. Remember, this isn't about becoming a completely different person overnight. It's about understanding the invisible machinery behind your daily actions and learning to gently steer it in a better direction. One small habit, one tiny vote, 1 degree closer to melting that ice. We're just getting started, and I promise you, it only gets better from here. Chapter 4, The Man Who Didn't Look Right. All right, let me tell you a story that's going to stick with you. It's subtle, it's quiet, but it carries one of the most important lessons in this entire book. There was a woman working in a hospital, just a regular shift, nothing unusual. She was checking on a patient. Vitals were fine, monitors were steady, every number on every screen looked perfectly normal. There was no alarm going off, no flashing light, no reason for anyone to panic. But something felt off to her. She couldn't explain it. She couldn't point to a single piece of data that was wrong. She just looked at this man and said 4 words that ended up saving his life. He doesn't look right. And she was correct. Beneath those normal-looking numbers, something serious was developing. Her instinct, built from years of quietly observing thousands of patients, picked up on a pattern that no machine could detect. That gut feeling, that barely conscious whisper, it was real, and it mattered more than all the data on the screen. James Clear uses this story to introduce something incredibly powerful: the idea that awareness is the foundation of all meaningful change. Have you ever thought about how many things you do every single day without even noticing? Think about it. How many times did you pick up your phone today? How many times did you open the fridge without actually being hungry? How many times did you bite your nails, crack your knuckles, or zone out scrolling through social media? We don't plan these things. They just happen. And that's the hidden danger of unconscious behavior. James Clear puts it perfectly. You cannot change a habit you're not even aware of. That's the foundational truth of this chapter. Before you can build anything new, before you can break anything old, you first need to see what's already there, clearly, honestly, without judgment. And this is where Clear introduces one of the simplest yet most transformative tools in the book: the habit scorecard. Here's how it works. You grab a piece of paper and write down every single thing you typically do in a day, from the moment you wake up to the moment your head hits the pillow. Everything. Then, next to each one, you mark it with a plus sign if it's positive, a minus sign if it's negative, or an equal sign if it's neutral. Wake up, check phone, make coffee, skip breakfast, drive to work, scroll during lunch, exercise, watch TV for 3 hours, brush teeth, go to bed. That's it. No fixing, no guilt, no promises to change. Just seeing, just noticing. And honestly, that's where the magic begins. Because once you actually see the full picture of your daily patterns, something shifts inside you. You stop blaming yourself in vague, unhelpful ways. You stop saying, "I'm just lazy," or "I have no discipline." Instead, you start noticing specific triggers. You realize, oh, I always reach for chips when I sit on a couch, or I always open Instagram right after lunch. These aren't random, they're cues. And recognizing them is the first step toward redesigning your behavior. Does that resonate with you? Have you ever tried writing down everything you do in a single day? I challenge you to try it. Just once. You might be surprised, even shocked, by what you discover. There's a quote James Clear shares in this chapter that honestly gave me chills. It's from Carl Jung. "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Read that again. Most of the struggles we face, procrastination, overeating, scrolling, poor sleep, they're not failures of willpower. They're failures of awareness. And the moment you start paying attention, really paying attention, the invisible patterns that have been running your life suddenly become visible. And visible patterns, those can be changed. Clear also introduces a powerful practical tool here called implementation intentions. Instead of vaguely hoping to change, you create a specific plan using this simple formula: I will behavior at time and location. For example, I will do 10 push-ups at 7:30 a.m. in my bedroom. Or, I will write for 15 minutes at 8 p.m. at my desk. It sounds almost too simple, right? But the research is overwhelming. People who set specific scheduled plans are dramatically more likely to follow through. Because vague intentions get crushed by the chaos of daily life. Clear, precise plans give your goals a shape. They take the awareness you've built and channel it directly into action. So here's my question. What's one habit you do every day that you've never really stopped to examine? What would happen if you looked at it closely? Sometimes the smallest observation leads to the biggest breakthrough. Chapter 5. The best way to start a new habit. Okay, so now you're aware. You can see your habits clearly. You've got the scorecard. You understand the cues. But how do you actually start something new? How do you take a brand new behavior and make it stick? James Clear answers this with one of the most elegant ideas in the book: habit stacking. Think about your morning for a second. You wake up, you brush your teeth, you make coffee, you check your phone. These actions flow one into the next, almost like dominoes. You don't decide to do them. They just happen in sequence because your brain has linked them together over years of repetition. Now, what if you could slip a new habit into that existing chain? What if, instead of building a habit from scratch, you simply attached it to something you already do automatically? That's exactly what habit stacking is. The formula is beautiful in its simplicity. After current habit, I will new habit. After I pour my morning coffee, I will write down one thing I'm grateful for. After I take off my work shoes, I will change into workout clothes. After I brush my teeth at night, I will read one page of a book. After I sit down for dinner, I will say something kind to the person across from me. Can you feel how natural that sounds? You're not reinventing your entire life. You're not waking up at 4 a.m. or overhauling everything. You're just gently sliding one small new action into a sequence that already exists. And because your brain already trusts and recognizes the anchor behavior, the coffee, the shoes, the toothbrush, it begins to adopt the new behavior almost automatically. Have you ever tried this? Have you ever attached a new habit to something you already do every day? If not, I want you to think about it right now. What's one thing you do every single morning without fail? That's your anchor. That's your launch pad. What could you attach to it? Clear also digs into why timing and location matter so much more than willpower. Compare these two statements: I'll meditate every day versus I'll meditate for 1 minute after I pour my morning coffee at 7 a.m. in the kitchen. The second one is specific. It's anchored, it's real, and it's infinitely more likely to happen. Because when the steps are clear and the sequence flows naturally, your brain follows through with almost no resistance. This isn't about forcing change. It's about designing it into the rhythm of your life. And there's something deeply comforting about that, isn't there? You don't need more motivation. You just need better placement. Clear also reminds us to start small. Don't try to stack 10 new habits at once. Begin with one. Make it so tiny it almost feels ridiculous. One push-up, one sentence, one breath. Once that tiny stack becomes stable, you can expand. You can build a chain. After coffee, I meditate. After meditating, I journal. After journaling, I begin my most important task. Each link supports the next. But the strength of the chain depends on the first link being rock solid. So start there. Start anchored. Start small. And watch how something so simple quietly reshapes your entire day. Chapter 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. All right, this chapter is going to challenge something most of us deeply believe. We think that when we fail at a habit, it's because we lacked motivation. We weren't disciplined enough. We weren't strong enough. We didn't want it badly enough. But James Clear says something that stopped me in my tracks. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. Think about this. You walk into your kitchen and suddenly feel like snacking, even though you weren't hungry 30 seconds ago. You sit on the couch and automatically reach for the remote. You lie in bed and your hand gravitates toward your phone. That's not motivation at work. That's your environment pulling the strings. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever walked into a room and found yourself doing something you didn't even plan to do? That's the invisible power of your surroundings. Clear points out something most of us know deep down, but rarely admit. We don't choose our habits in a vacuum. We respond to what's around us. If the chocolate is on the counter, we eat it. If the phone is face up beside us, we check it. If the guitar is hidden in a closet, we forget it exists. If the book is buried in a drawer, it never gets read. So here's the shift. Clear wants us to make. Stop asking, how can I stay more disciplined? And start asking, how can I design my space so that good habits become the default? This is environment design, and it's one of the most powerful concepts in the entire book. The principle is straightforward. Make the cues for good habits visible and obvious. Want to drink more water? Put a full glass on your desk before you sit down. Want to practice guitar? Keep it on a stand in the middle of the room, not in a case under the bed. Want to eat healthier? Place fruit at the front of the fridge and hide junk food in the back, in opaque containers. This isn't about discipline, it's about visibility. If the cue is out of sight, it's out of mind. If it's right in front of you, it becomes a silent invitation. And here's a fascinating thing about your brain. Clear explains that we don't just associate habits with time, we associate them with places. You feel focused at your desk. You feel sleepy in your bedroom. You feel hungry when you walk into the kitchen, even if you just ate 10 minutes ago. These associations form because the place itself becomes the trigger. So here's the practical takeaway. Assign specific spaces for specific habits. Read in a certain chair, write at a clean desk, meditate in a quiet corner, eat only at the dining table. And this is important. Never scroll in bed. When you separate environments by intention, you reinforce the behavior. Each time you return to that space, your brain says, "Oh, we do this here," and the habit becomes effortless. But it works the other way too. Just as you make good cues visible, you need to make bad cues invisible. If your phone pulls you away from work, leave it in another room. If binge watching is eating your evenings, unplug the TV after each use. If social media steals your focus, log out after every session or delete the app entirely. The idea is simple but life-changing. Make good habits frictionless and bad habits inconvenient. You don't need to overpower a bad habit. You just need to trip it up. Remove the temptation before it even starts. Can you think of one small change you could make to your space right now? Maybe it's putting your journal on top of your laptop. Maybe it's laying out workout clothes the night before. Maybe it's keeping only one tab open on your browser. You don't need a complete home renovation. You just need a redesign of intention. Because your habits aren't just shaped by what's inside you. They're shaped by what surrounds you. And the beautiful thing is, you get to choose what surrounds you. Chapter 7. The Secret to Self-Control. Let me ask you something honest. When you see someone who seems incredibly disciplined, they never miss a workout, they eat clean, they wake up early, They don't waste time on social media. What do you think? Do you think, wow, they must have amazing willpower? Most of us do. We look at these people and assume they're fighting temptation every single day and somehow winning, like they're superhuman, like they have some internal strength the rest of us are missing. But James Clear reveals something in this chapter that completely reframes the picture. According to him, people who appear to have great self-control aren't actually better at resisting temptation. They're better at avoiding it. Let that sink in for a moment. They don't succeed because they fight harder. They succeed because they've designed their lives so the fight rarely happens. Consider this scenario. There's a plate of warm, freshly baked cookies sitting on your kitchen counter. You walk past them 10 times a day. Each time, you have to mentally tell yourself, don't eat one. Even if you resist every single time, each moment of resistance chips away at your mental energy. It's exhausting. It's draining. And eventually, you cave. Now imagine a different scenario. The cookies aren't in the house. You don't see them. You don't smell them. You don't think about them. Suddenly, not eating a cookie isn't a battle of willpower. It's a non-event. There's nothing to resist because the temptation doesn't exist. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever noticed that when certain things aren't around, you don't even miss them? But the second they're in front of you, they're irresistible. That's the power of the cue. You can't crave what you don't notice. James Clear tells a story of a man who lost over 100 pounds, not through extreme diets or superhuman discipline, but by systematically removing the cues that triggered his bad habits. He stopped watching cable TV to avoid late-night mindless snacking. He left his phone in another room during meals so he could eat mindfully. He packed healthy lunches ahead of time so junk food was never even an option. Each change was small. Each one removed a single trigger. And together, they created an environment where there was simply nothing to resist. That's the core principle. Self-control is a short-term strategy. Environment design is a long-term one. There's also a psychological concept. Clear references called the 20-second rule. If something is just 20 seconds harder to access, you're far less likely to do it. And if something is 20 seconds easier, you're far more likely to do it. That tiny friction makes all the difference. Want to stop mindless scrolling? Move the app to a hidden folder or delete it entirely. Want to avoid impulse buying? Leave your credit card at home. Want to stop eating junk? Simply don't bring it into the house. The goal is to create just enough friction that your automatic behavior gets interrupted before it turns into action. And here's one of the most powerful revelations in this chapter. People with high self-control actually spend less time in situations that test it. They don't keep temptations around. They don't put themselves in positions where they need to be heroic. They just quietly remove the obstacles and let their environment carry them. But temptation isn't just physical. It's social too. Clear reminds us that if you're surrounded by people who gossip, skip workouts, scroll endlessly, or overspend, you're much more likely to adopt those same behaviors. One of the most effective things you can do is join a culture where the behaviors you want are the norm. Surround yourself with readers if you want to read. Connect with runners if you want to run. Be around creators if you want to build. When your environment aligns with your goals, resisting temptation stops feeling like resistance. It starts feeling like you're just going with the flow, but in a better direction. So here's the big takeaway from chapter 7. You don't need more willpower. You need better design. You don't beat bad habits by gritting your teeth. You beat them by removing the conditions in which they thrive. And the next time you admire someone's discipline, pause and ask yourself, are they really stronger than me? Or did they just make sure the cookies weren't in the house? Because the highest form of self-control is not needing it at all. And that's not weakness. That's wisdom. You're not defined by your willpower. You're shaped by your surroundings. And the good news? You have the power to shape them right back. Chapter 8. How to make a habit irresistible. All right, I want you to try something with me. Close your eyes for just a second and think about a habit you've been meaning to build. Maybe it's exercising regularly. Maybe it's reading before bed. Maybe it's journaling, meditating, eating better, or finally learning that skill you've been putting off for years. Now be honest with yourself. When you think about doing that thing, does it feel exciting? Does it feel like something you genuinely look forward to? Or does it feel more like a chore, something you know you should do but secretly dread? If it feels like a chore, you're not alone. And more importantly, it's not your fault. Because here's a truth James Clear reveals in this chapter that changes everything. Habits don't stick just because they're good for us. They stick because they feel good. And if you want a habit to last, you have to make it emotionally attractive before you even begin doing it. Think about that for a second. We don't actually crave the act of checking social media. What we crave is the feeling of connection, the little dopamine hit of novelty, the sense that something interesting might be waiting for us. We don't crave brushing our teeth. We crave the sensation of a clean, fresh mouth afterward. We don't crave opening a workout app. We crave the pride, the energy, the relief that follows. Here's the fascinating part. It's not the reward itself that drives us to act. It's the anticipation of the reward. Your brain releases dopamine, that feel-good chemical, not when you receive the reward, but when you expect it. When you smell popcorn at the movies, your brain lights up before you eat a single kernel. When your phone buzzes with a notification, the excitement hits before you even read the message. When you hear energizing music at the gym, your body starts responding before you lift a single weight. High anticipation creates high motivation. Low anticipation, no action. That's the equation. And that's why building a habit isn't really about what you do. It's about how much you look forward to doing it. So how do you make a habit feel irresistible? James Clear introduces a brilliant technique called temptation bundling. The concept comes from research by behavioral economist Katie Milkman, and the core idea is beautifully simple. Pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do. Here's how it works in real life. You only listen to your favorite podcast while exercising. You only watch your favorite show while folding laundry. You only drink your special coffee after you've written a journal entry. You only scroll through social media after you've completed 10 pages of reading. Can you see the genius in this? You're linking an instant emotional reward, the thing you crave, to a long-term beneficial habit, the thing you're trying to build. The habit becomes emotionally irresistible, not because the action itself has changed, but because your experience of it has completely transformed. Have you ever tried something like this? Pairing something you enjoy with something you've been avoiding? If not, I want you to think about it right now. What's one thing you love doing? And what's one habit you've been struggling to maintain? What if you combined them? But here's the thing. Cravings don't just come from biology. They're deeply shaped by the people around you. James Clear reminds us that we tend to imitate the habits of three specific groups: the close, the many, and the powerful. First, the close. These are the people you spend the most time with: your family, your partner, your roommate, your best friends. If your partner meditates every morning, you're more likely to start meditating. If your roommate eats healthy, you'll naturally gravitate toward better food choices. Proximity breeds imitation. We absorb the habits of the people nearest to us almost by osmosis. Then there's the many, the broader social group. Social proof is incredibly powerful. If everyone at your workplace takes an afternoon walk, you'll probably want to join them. If all your friends are reading the same book, your curiosity kicks in. We crave belonging even more than we crave discipline. That's just human nature. And finally, the powerful, the people we admire and look up to. Whether it's a fitness influencer, a successful author, a spiritual teacher, or a CEO, we naturally mirror the habits of those we respect. Their habits feel attractive not just because of their results, but because those actions represent an identity we want for ourselves. So if you want to build irresistible habits, here's the secret. Place yourself inside a culture where those habits are the norm. Let the environment and the people around you carry you forward. Because when a habit is both personally rewarding and socially reinforced, it doesn't just become attractive. It becomes inevitable. And one more beautiful idea from Clear before we move on. You can actually train yourself to crave the habit itself, not just the outcome. How? By making the experience enjoyable. Track your progress visually. Play music while you work. Use small rituals to signal the start of your habit. Reward yourself with affirming self-talk. I'm the kind of person who shows up. Over time, the habit itself becomes the reward, not because of what it gives you, but because of who it makes you feel like. Because when a habit becomes attractive, it becomes part of you, and that's when real change takes root. Chapter 9. The Role of Family and Friends in Shaping Your Habits. You know what's funny? When most of us think about changing our habits, we picture it as this deeply personal solo journey. Just us against the world, us against our weaknesses, us locked in a room, gritting our teeth, summoning willpower from some hidden reservoir inside. But James Clear drops a truth in this chapter that honestly shifted the way I see everything. One of the deepest human desires is to belong. And that desire, to belong to a family, a group of friends, a team, a community, has a bigger influence on your behavior than almost anything else. More than your motivation, more than your plans, more than your goals. The people around you shape who you become, often without you even realizing it. Think about your own habits for a moment. Really think. Where did they come from? You might find that many of your daily routines aren't entirely your own creation. Maybe you drink the same coffee your partner likes. Maybe your workout habits, or lack of them, mirror those of your closest friends. Maybe the way you spend money closely resembles the patterns of your family or social circle. Even the way you talk, the slang you use, the way you dress, these things are shaped by the people you surround yourself with. This isn't coincidence. It's conformity. And before you think of that word negatively, listen to this. James Clear says something that hits hard. When changing your habits means challenging the tribe, change is unattractive. When changing your habits means fitting in with the tribe, change is very attractive. Have you ever tried to change something about yourself and felt like the people around you were pulling you back? Maybe you wanted to eat healthier, but your friends kept suggesting fast food. Maybe you wanted to wake up earlier, but your partner stayed up late. Maybe you wanted to save money, but everyone around you was spending freely. That gravitational pull is real, and it's powerful. So what do? Clear offers a simple but profound strategy. Find a tribe where the behavior you desire is considered normal. Want to write more? Join a writing group. Want to exercise consistently? Find a gym community that actually shows up. Want to read more? Connect with readers. Want to save money? Surround yourself with people who value financial discipline. And here's something even deeper. When your behavior aligns with the values of your tribe, it stops feeling like effort. It starts feeling like belonging. You're not just doing a habit. You're expressing an identity that your community shares. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is how we live. I know this can be uncomfortable. Sometimes changing your habits means reevaluating your relationships. Clear is honest about this. He says, it's hard to change your habits if you never change the group you belong to. That might sting a little, but it's also incredibly empowering because it means you always have a choice. You can choose the environments you step into. You can choose the people you align with. And when your new habit becomes the price of entry into a community you admire, you'll adopt it not reluctantly, but eagerly, consistently, and deeply. So ask yourself right now, who are the people shaping your habits? Is your current tribe pulling you toward the person you want to become? Or is it quietly holding you back? Sometimes the biggest change isn't switching up your morning routine. It's switching up your room, the people you spend your time with. Because transformation doesn't just happen alone. It happens together. And when you find the right tribe, change doesn't just become possible. It becomes inevitable. Chapter 10. How to find and fix the causes of your bad habits. Okay, let's get honest for a minute. Really honest. Because this chapter goes somewhere most self-help content is afraid to go. Into the messy, uncomfortable truth about why we do the things we know are bad for us. You know that feeling. You're scrolling through your phone at midnight, even though you promised yourself you'd sleep early. You're reaching for junk food, even though you just ate. You're procrastinating on something important by doing something completely meaningless. And the whole time, there's this voice in your head saying, why am I doing this? I know better. But you keep doing it anyway. Sound familiar? James Clear opens this chapter with a powerful insight. Bad habits are autocatalytic. That means the process feeds itself. You feel anxious, so you scroll your phone. The scrolling makes you feel guilty. The guilt makes you more anxious, so you scroll more. Or you feel bored, so you snack. The snacking makes you feel sluggish. The sluggishness makes you bored again, and round you go. These aren't random behaviors, they're loops, and they become automatic through years of reinforcement. But here's the thing that changed everything for me. Every bad habit has a reason, even the ones that seem destructive or pointless. They're not signs of weakness, they're signs of unmet needs. Let me say that again because it's important. Your bad habits are not proof that something is wrong with you. They're signals, messengers trying to tell you something about what you're really feeling underneath. James Clear encourages us to stop asking, "Why is this behavior bad?" and start asking better questions. What problem is this habit trying to solve? What emotion is this habit helping me escape? What deeper need is this behavior pointing to? Maybe that late-night scrolling isn't about loving social media. Maybe it's about avoiding the anxiety of tomorrow. Maybe the snacking isn't about hunger. Maybe it's about loneliness. Maybe the procrastination isn't about laziness. Maybe it's about fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. Have you ever paused to ask yourself what's really behind your worst habits? Not the surface-level behavior, but the emotion driving it. I think if we all got quiet enough to listen, we'd be surprised by what we find. Clear shares a story that illustrates this perfectly. A woman had a habit of eating candy from her desk every afternoon. It seemed like a simple sugar craving. But after some honest reflection, she realized it only happened after her boss walked past with a disapproving look. The candy wasn't about sugar, it was comfort. It was her way of coping with anxiety she couldn't control. She couldn't change her boss, but she could notice the pattern, and once she saw it clearly, she could build a new response, taking deep breaths, placing an encouraging note on her monitor, making tea instead of grabbing candy. A small shift, but it changed everything. So how do you actually fix your bad habits? Clear gives us a roadmap. First, become aware. Use the habit scorecard we talked about earlier. Write down your daily habits and label them. Don't judge yourself. Just observe. Bring the invisible patterns into the light. Second, identify the real cue. Most bad habits don't begin with the behavior. They begin with a feeling. Stress, boredom, anxiety, loneliness, exhaustion. Find the emotional trigger, not just the physical one. Third, make the cue invisible. If junk food triggers you, don't keep it in the house. If your phone pulls you into scrolling at night, charge it in another room. If certain people trigger negative behaviors, create healthy boundaries. As Clear puts it, it's easier to avoid temptation than to resist it. Fourth, build an alternative response. Instead of vague goals like, "I'll eat better," create specific plans. If I feel stressed after work, I will take 5 deep breaths and make a cup of tea. This gives you a healthier way to meet the same emotional need. And fifth, and this is the deepest one, build emotional resilience. Learn to sit with discomfort without immediately reacting. Notice your cravings without responding to them. Observe your stress instead of running from it. Name your emotions instead of acting them out. This isn't just habit work anymore. This is inner work. And it might be the most important work you ever do. Because in the end, the bad habit itself is never the real enemy. It's a messenger. So the next time you catch yourself falling into an old pattern, don't beat yourself up. Instead, gently ask, what am I really needing right now? What triggered this? Can I meet this need in a different way? That question is where deep, gentle transformation begins. Chapter 11. Walk slowly, but never backward. I want you to imagine something. You've been working hard, really hard. You've been showing up every day, eating right, exercising, writing, reading, meditating, whatever your thing is. You've been consistent for weeks, maybe even months. And yet, nothing seems to be different. The scale hasn't moved. The book isn't finished. The anxiety hasn't lifted. The results just aren't there. Have you been in that place? That frustrating, demoralizing place where you're doing everything right and seeing nothing in return? If so, I need you to hear this. You are not failing. You are building. James Clear returns to the ice cube metaphor here, and it hits even harder the second time around. Remember, at 25 degrees, nothing happens. At 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, still nothing. The ice just sits there, frozen, unchanged, mocking your efforts. And then at 32 degrees, it melts. Not because of that one final degree, but because of every invisible degree that came before. Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential, the phase where effort is real, but results are invisible. And he names the emotional experience of this phase the valley of disappointment. It's the gap between what you expected to happen and what's actually happening. And it's exactly where most people quit. You've been eating healthy for weeks and see no weight loss. You've been writing daily but have no readers. You've been meditating for a month but still feel anxious. It feels like failure, but it's not. It's just early, because all meaningful results are delayed. They compound beneath the surface, invisible, until one day they break through. Think about bamboo. For years, it grows roots underground, deep, wide, silent. Nothing visible, nothing to show for it. And then, within just a few weeks, it shoots up 90 feet. That's what habit transformation looks like. You walk slowly, but you never go backward. And here's the shift Clear wants us to make. Stop obsessing over goals and start trusting the system. Goals are great for setting direction, but systems are what actually drive progress. Goals live in the future. Systems live in the present. And when you fall in love with the system rather than just the outcome, you begin to win every single day. Writing 500 words is a win, even if the book isn't finished. Going to the gym is a win, even if your body hasn't visibly changed yet. Saving $5 is a win, even if you're nowhere near wealthy. You measure success by showing up, not by the distant destination. One of Clear's most powerful observations is this: winners and losers often have the same goals. Every Olympic athlete wants gold. Every startup founder wants success. Every student wants great grades. Goals can't be the difference maker because everyone has them. The real difference lies in their systems. It's not about who wants it more. It's about who designs their life better. So how do you stay consistent when the results aren't showing up? Clear offers practical wisdom that's carried me through my own valleys of disappointment. First, focus on your trajectory, not your current position. Ask yourself, am I moving in the right direction? Am I showing up today? Even 1% better each day compounds into something extraordinary over time. Second, measure backward, not just forward. Don't only think about what's left. Look at how far you've already come. Notice what used to feel difficult but now feels automatic. That's progress. And recognizing it fuels your momentum. Third, embrace a powerful mantra. Don't miss twice. Everyone slips. You will too. You'll skip a workout, eat something unhealthy, waste an evening. That's human. But the key is what happens next. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new pattern. So when you fall, get back up immediately. Not next Monday, not tomorrow. Now. Clear shares the story of Jerry Seinfeld, one of the greatest comedians of all time. His secret to writing jokes every day was shockingly simple. He used a wall calendar. Every day he wrote, he'd mark a big red X. Over time, the X's formed a chain, and his only rule, don't break the chain. He wasn't trying to write brilliance every single day. He was just trying to show up. That was his system, small, repeatable, and unbreakable. And here's the message I want to leave you with as this chapter closes. You might be doing the work right now and seeing no visible change. That's the ice cube. You're at 31 degrees. You're so close, so please don't quit now. Keep showing up. Keep casting your votes. Keep walking, slowly maybe, but never backward, because transformation is not a single dramatic event. It's a direction. It's a path. It's a system. And the breakthrough you've been working toward, it might be just one more degree away. What if today's effort, the one that feels like it's accomplishing nothing, is actually the one that tips the scale? You'll never know unless you keep going. Chapter 12. The Law of Least Effort. Let me ask you something that might sound a little uncomfortable at first. When you skip a workout, eat junk food, or waste 2 hours scrolling through your phone, do you blame yourself? Do you think it happened because you're lazy? Because you lack discipline? Because something is fundamentally broken inside you? If so, I want to gently challenge that belief. Because James Clear opens this chapter with a truth that might just set you free. Human behavior naturally follows the law of least effort. And that's not a flaw. It's how we're wired. Our brains evolved to conserve energy. Every single decision you make throughout the day is a quiet negotiation between effort and reward. Your brain is constantly asking one simple question. What's the easiest path right now? And most of the time, without you even noticing, it chooses the option that requires the least amount of work. That's why you reach for chips when they're sitting on the counter. That's why you check your phone when it's lying face up next to you. That's why you skip the gym when your workout clothes are buried somewhere at the bottom of the laundry pile. These aren't moral failures. They're design failures. Your environment is set up in a way that makes the wrong choice the easy choice. And once you understand that, everything changes. Because the solution isn't to summon more willpower. The solution is better design. James Clear uses a beautiful metaphor here. A gardener. Think about it. A gardener doesn't stand over a seed and yell at it to grow. She doesn't motivate it. She doesn't set goals for it. She simply creates the right conditions: sunlight, water, healthy soil, space. And then she steps back and lets nature do the work. Your habits work the same way. They don't need force. They need fertile ground. Instead of trying harder, try designing smarter. Instead of relying on discipline, rely on setup. Because energy always follows the path of least resistance. And if you can make the right choice, the easiest choice, you'll be amazed at how naturally good behavior flows. This brings us to what Clear calls the friction principle. And honestly, this might be one of the most practical ideas in the entire book. The concept is simple. Increase friction for bad habits and decrease friction for good ones. Here's what this looks like in everyday life. Want to read more? Put a book on your pillow so it's the last thing you see before sleep. Want to eat healthier? Pre-cut your vegetables and store them at eye level in the fridge. Want to work out in the morning? Sleep in your gym clothes. I know that sounds extreme, but think about how much easier it makes that first step. Want to write daily? Keep your journal open on your desk with a pen sitting right on top of it. The goal is to make the first step so ridiculously easy that saying no feels almost illogical. Design your space so the default action, the thing you do without thinking, is the thing you actually want to do. And the flip side is just as powerful. Want to scroll less on your phone? Delete the social media apps or log out after every session. Want to cut down on TV? Unplug it after each use and put the remote in a different room. Want to stop mindless snacking? Don't buy the snacks. Or at the very least, put them in high, inconvenient cupboards where getting them requires effort. Every extra step you add creates a tiny bit of friction. And even that smallest amount can be enough to kill a temptation before it starts. You don't need to wage war against your bad habits. You just need to make them slightly more annoying to do. Have you ever noticed how just one extra step can stop you from doing something? Like when a website asks you to create an account before you can browse. Sometimes that's enough to make you close the tab entirely. That's friction in action. And you can use the same principle to protect yourself from your own worst impulses. Clear also talks about something I find really powerful. The idea that every space in your life sends a behavioral message. Your kitchen says, eat. Your couch says, relax. Your desk says, work. Your bed says, sleep. But in modern life, we blur these boundaries constantly. We eat at our desks. We work in bed. We scroll on the couch, on the toilet, at the dinner table. And this confusion makes it harder for our brains to know what behavior is expected. The fix? One space, one use. Even if you live in a tiny apartment, you can create defined zones. A specific chair for reading, a corner of the room for writing, a cushion on the floor for meditation. When your brain enters that zone, it immediately understands what's expected. No willpower needed, no internal debate, just flow. Clear also introduces a strategy called environment priming, preparing your space in advance so the next action becomes effortless. If you want to eat a healthy breakfast tomorrow, set out the pan and oats tonight. If you plan to go for a morning run, place your shoes by the door and cue up a podcast. If you want to write first thing in the morning, open the document and type the title before you go to bed. When your environment is primed, decision-making becomes almost unnecessary. And that's the whole point. The fewer decisions you have to make, the more energy you have for the things that actually matter. I love what Clear says toward the end of this chapter. He doesn't ask us to become more disciplined people. He invites us to become intentional designers of our lives. Designers don't depend on willpower. They remove obstacles. They smooth the path. They make the right thing the easy thing. So take a look around you right now. What is your environment whispering to you? Is it supporting the person you're becoming? Or is it quietly dragging you back into someone you've already outgrown? Because you don't have to fight your habits. You just have to set the stage for them. and then let the law of least effort do the rest. Chapter 13, How to Stop Procrastinating by Using the 2-Minute Rule. Okay, this chapter might just be the one that changes your life the most. And the crazy thing is, it's built on the simplest idea in the entire book. Here it is. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes. That's it. That's the whole rule. I know what you might be thinking. 2 minutes? How could 2 minutes possibly make a difference? How is that going to help me write a book, get in shape, learn a language, or build a business? But here's what James Clear wants you to understand. Those 2 minutes aren't just the beginning of the habit. They are the habit. Because the biggest barrier to change isn't the work itself. It's the starting. Once you start, momentum carries you forward. But getting started, that's where we all get stuck. Let me paint this picture for you. You want to become someone who runs every morning. But the thought of running 5 kilometers, lacing up your shoes, finding the right playlist, pushing through the fatigue, it's overwhelming. Your brain looks at all those steps and says, that's too much work, and sends you back to bed. So instead, try this. Your only goal today is to put on your running shoes. That's it. Nothing else. 2 minutes. That's done. And yet, once the shoes are on, something interesting happens. You might step outside. You might stretch a little. You might jog to the end of the block. Because the hardest part, the starting, is already behind you. The rest just flows. Clear calls these gateway habits small, low-effort actions that naturally lead to more. They're not about doing the full thing. They're about becoming the kind of person who does the thing. And that shift in identity, that's where the real magic lives. So let's apply this everywhere. Want to read more? Read 1 page. Want to write more? Write 1 sentence. Want to meditate? Sit in silence for 2 minutes? Want to eat healthier? Chop 1 vegetable? Want to practice an instrument? Play 1 chord? These actions sound almost laughably small. And that's precisely the point. They're too small to fail. They're so easy that your brain doesn't even bother resisting them. They slip quietly past every excuse, every objection, every "I don't feel like it" that usually stops you cold. And here's the beautiful thing. These tiny actions build identity. 1 sentence written, you're still a writer. 1 push-up done, you're still someone who exercises. 1 minute of silence, you're still someone who values mindfulness. These micro-actions are votes, small ones, yes, but votes nonetheless. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the size of a goal? Like the mountain in front of you was just too tall to even start climbing? I think we've all been there, and the 2-minute rule is like discovering there's a gentle path around the side of that mountain. You don't have to conquer it all today. You just have to take 1 tiny step. Clear also warns us about something sneaky, the trap of motion without action. This is when you spend your time planning, researching, organizing, and thinking about a habit instead of actually doing it. Making a workout playlist instead of going to the gym. Reading about writing instead of writing. Watching cooking videos instead of cooking. It feels productive. But it's really just a comfortable form of delay. The 2-minute rule kills this trap instantly. Because it's not about thinking. It's about doing. You don't need the perfect plan. You just need a first step. And one more thing I love about this chapter. Clear introduces the concept of habit shaping, building habits in stages. Start with something effortless, like putting on your workout clothes. Once that's automatic, move to something easy like 5 push-ups. When that feels natural, go moderate, a 10-minute routine. And only when you're genuinely ready, move to something challenging, like a full workout program. Each stage flows naturally from the last. You never force progress. You grow into it, like a tree sending roots deep before reaching high. And those 2-minute habits, they're your first roots. So today, I'm not asking you to change your life. I'm asking you to give me 2 minutes. Put on the shoes, open the notebook, sit on the cushion. That's all. Because when starting is easy, everything else becomes possible. Chapter 14, How to Make Good Habits Inevitable and Bad Habits Impossible. James Clear opens this chapter with a story I absolutely love. It's about the legendary French writer Victor Hugo. In 1830, Hugo was supposed to be writing his next novel. He had a contract. He had a deadline approaching fast. But instead of writing, he kept wandering around the city, entertaining guests, procrastinating, doing everything except sitting down to work. So he did something radical. He gathered up all his clothes, locked them in a chest, and gave the key to someone else. With nothing to wear, he couldn't leave the house. Trapped indoors with no distractions, he finally sat down and wrote. And the result? One of the most celebrated novels in literary history. Now, I'm not suggesting you lock away your wardrobe, but the principle behind Hugo's extreme move is the core message of this chapter. The best way to build a good habit is to make it unavoidable. And the best way to break a bad habit is to make it practically impossible. This isn't about being tougher or more disciplined. It's about being smarter with your design. Clear emphasizes this over and over. Disciplined people aren't more disciplined than you. They've just designed their lives so that the right choices require the least resistance and the wrong choices require the most. Think about your own daily life for a moment. If the TV remote is within arm's reach, you'll probably turn on the television. If cookies are sitting on the counter, you'll likely eat them. If your phone is beside your bed, you'll scroll on it before you sleep and the moment you wake up. These aren't deliberate decisions. They're default behaviors shaped entirely by what's around you. So, what if you flip the script? What if you made good behaviors the path of least resistance and bad behaviors harder to access? This is where Clear introduces one of the most powerful tools in the book, commitment devices. A commitment device is a decision you make right now that locks in better behavior for the future. You make the choice when your willpower is strong so that later, when you're tired, distracted, or tempted, the decision is already made for you. Some practical examples. Delete distracting apps from your phone so mindless scrolling becomes impossible even if you want to. Set up automatic transfers to your savings account so saving happens without you thinking about it. Schedule a workout with a friend so skipping it means letting someone down. Use website blockers during work hours so your browser only shows productive sites. Pre-plan your meals and order groceries online so unhealthy impulse purchases never happen. These aren't about forcing yourself to be better. They're about making it easier to be better. There's a huge difference. Can you think of one commitment device you could set up today? One decision you could make right now, while you're feeling motivated and clear-headed, that would protect your future self from making a bad choice? Clear also talks about automation as the highest level of environment design. When you automate good behaviors, they no longer require daily motivation or even conscious thought. Automatic bill payments, scheduled gym classes, meal prep routines, calendar reminders for important tasks. Once these systems are running, good behavior happens in the background. You're not wrestling with yourself every day. You're just living out your values on autopilot. And here's the other side of the coin. To make bad habits impossible, add friction. Lots of it. Want to watch less TV? Unplug it after every use and put the remote in a drawer. Want to stop late-night scrolling? Leave your phone in another room before bed and use a regular alarm clock. Want to quit impulse spending? Freeze your credit cards, literally, in a block of ice. The more steps between you and the bad habit, the less likely you are to follow through. Every space in your life has what Clear calls a choice architecture, a hidden structure that silently nudges your behavior. The question is, who designed that architecture? Was it you? Or did it just happen by accident? Because when you take control of your environment, when you deliberately design the architecture of your choices, you stop being a victim of your impulses and start being the architect of your life. That's not willpower. That's wisdom. And it works far longer than motivation ever could. Chapter 15. The Cardinal Rule of Behavior Change. All right, here we are. We've covered 3 of the 4 laws. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy. But there's one more, and honestly, this might be the most important one of all. Make it satisfying. James Clear puts it this way: what is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. This is the cardinal rule of behavior change, and it cuts to the heart of why we struggle so much with good habits and fall so easily into bad ones. Think about it. Our brains are wired to respond to immediate feedback, not long-term consequences. We know that eating a donut will hurt our health eventually, but right now, in this moment, it tastes incredible. We know that skipping the gym will catch up with us, but right now, staying in bed feels amazing. We know that scrolling for 2 hours will leave us feeling empty, but right now, each swipe delivers a tiny hit of novelty and pleasure. Bad habits provide instant rewards with delayed costs. Good habits require immediate effort with delayed rewards. That's the fundamental mismatch, and the only way to outsmart it is to make good habits feel satisfying right now, not just someday in the future. So how do you do that? Clear offers several brilliant strategies. First, habit tracking. This is one of the simplest yet most effective tools for creating immediate satisfaction. Whether it's checking off a box on a calendar, filling in a habit tracker, or simply marking an X on a wall chart, the act of recording your progress gives you a small but real sense of accomplishment. Did you work out today? Check. Did you write? Check. Did you meditate? Check. Each mark is a tiny celebration. Each one says, I showed up, I followed through, I kept my promise to myself. And that feeling, that quiet pride, is deeply satisfying. It makes your brain want to do it again. Have you ever kept a streak of any kind? Maybe on an app, maybe on a calendar, maybe just in your head? Remember how good it felt to see those consecutive days building up? And remember how much you didn't want to break it? That's the power of tracking in action. Clear references the famous Jerry Seinfeld strategy here. Seinfeld used a wall calendar to build his daily writing habit. Every day he wrote, he marked a big red X. Over time, the X's formed a chain, and his only rule, don't break the chain. He wasn't trying to write comedy gold every single day. He was just trying to show up. And that simple visual system kept him going for years. But here's the important part. What happens when you do break the chain? Because you will. Life happens. You get sick, you travel, you have a terrible day, you just forget. And when that happens, Clear offers a powerful mantra. Never miss twice. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the beginning of a new habit. So when you stumble, and you will, the only thing that matters is how quickly you get back up. Ate poorly today? Make the next meal healthy. Skip the gym? Show up tomorrow. Didn't write? Open the notebook tonight. The power isn't in never falling. It's in how fast you recover. And there's another layer to making habits satisfying that goes deeper than tracking. Clear encourages us to focus on intrinsic rewards, the internal feelings that come from the habit itself, the calm after meditation, the clarity after journaling, the pride after completing a workout, the warmth after being kind to someone, the confidence that comes from simply knowing you showed up. These feelings are subtle. They don't scream for attention like the instant dopamine hit of junk food or social media. But they're real, and they're lasting. Over time, these quiet rewards reshape your relationship with the habit. You stop doing it for the outcome. You start doing it because it feels good to be the person who does it. That's identity in motion. That's the habit loop completing itself. Cue, craving, response, reward, and reinforcing who you are becoming. Let me tie all 4 laws together for you one more time. Make it obvious. Design your cues. Make it attractive. Build your cravings. Make it easy. Simplify your responses. Make it satisfying. Close the loop with rewards. These 4 laws aren't just productivity hacks. They're tools for becoming someone new. You're not just building habits. You're building an identity. And every single time you show up, track your progress, recover from a miss, and feel that quiet satisfaction, you're casting another vote for the person you want to be. And honestly, that might be the most satisfying thing of all. So here's my question to you as we close this chapter. What's one habit you've been struggling with? And which of these 4 laws could you apply today to make it just a little bit easier, a little bit more attractive, a little bit more obvious, a little bit more satisfying? Because you don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to close one loop, and then another, until one day you look up and realize you've become someone you're genuinely proud of. Chapter 16. How to Stick with Good Habits Every Day. So here's where we get to the question that quietly haunts everyone who has ever tried to change. You've learned how to start habits. You know how to shape them, how to make them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. You understand the science, the psychology, the frameworks. But underneath all of that knowledge, there's a persistent whisper that won't go away. How do I keep going? Not just for a week. Not just for a motivated Monday or an inspired January. But every single day. Even on the days when you're tired, bored, overwhelmed, or just completely not feeling it. How do you make good habits so deeply woven into your life that they happen as naturally as breathing? That's what this chapter is really about. And James Clear's answer is both simple and profound. You don't rely on motivation. You build a system that naturally pulls you toward the right behavior, even when motivation is nowhere to be found. Let's start with something we've touched on before but needs to go deeper: habit anchoring. Your daily life is already full of automatic behaviors. You wake up, you brush your teeth, you make coffee, you shower, you commute, you eat lunch, you come home, you go to bed. These moments happen like clockwork. Without you having to think about them, they're the backbone of your day. Now, what if each of those moments became a launch pad for something better? What if every automatic action in your day carried a new positive habit right behind it? That's the power of habit stacking at its fullest. After I brush my teeth, I'll floss. After I pour my coffee, I'll write one line in my journal. After I take off my shoes at home, I'll do 10 squats. After I sit down at my desk, I'll write 50 words. After I finish dinner, I'll read 1 page. Each anchor is stable. Each new habit is small. And together, they create a chain of positive actions that moves you forward without relying on willpower or motivation. You're not making decisions. You're following a rhythm. And rhythm, over time, becomes identity. But what happens when life throws you off your rhythm? Because it will. You'll get sick, you'll travel, you'll move to a new city, your schedule will change, a crisis will hit. And when that happens, most people watch their habits crumble. The chain breaks, the streak ends, and they feel like they're back to zero. James Clear has a powerful answer for this: the minimum viable habit. When everything around you is chaotic, when your normal routine is completely disrupted, you don't abandon your habits. You shrink them. You do the smallest possible version just to maintain the thread of consistency. Can't do your full workout? Do 10 push-ups. Can't write 500 words? Write 50. Can't meditate for 20 minutes? Sit quietly for 2. Can't eat a perfect meal? Just drink a glass of water. These micro actions might seem insignificant, but they're not. They're everything. Because in those messy, difficult moments, consistency beats intensity every single time. You're sending your brain a message: I'm still the kind of person who shows up, even when it's hard, even when it's imperfect, even when no one is watching. Have you ever been in that situation, where life got so chaotic that all your good habits just evaporated? I think most of us have, and the guilt that follows can be crushing. But here's what I want you to remember. You don't need a perfect day to maintain your identity. You just need a minimum viable effort. 1 push-up, 1 page, 1 breath. That's enough to keep the flame alive. Clear also talks about the power of automation, setting up systems that remove the need for daily decision-making. Automate your savings with bank transfers. Automate healthy eating with meal prep or delivery services. Automate your workouts by joining a class that runs on a fixed schedule. Automate focused work by using website blockers during your productive hours. The more you remove from conscious deliberation, the more your good habits run on autopilot, and the less you have to wrestle with yourself every single morning. As Clear beautifully puts it, design a world where doing the right thing is easier than doing nothing. Then there are commitment devices, decisions you make now that lock in your future behavior. Unsubscribe from streaming services if binge watching destroys your evenings. Leave your phone in another room when it's time for deep work. Schedule workouts with a friend, so canceling means letting someone down. Use tech blockers to limit social media after a certain hour. These devices take the choice out of your hands before you're vulnerable. Because let's be brutally honest, future you is unreliable. Future you is tired, distracted, emotional, and easily swayed. But right now you is clear-headed and motivated. So make the decision now. Lock it in. Protect your future self from your future self. And of course, there's habit tracking. We've talked about it before, but it deserves emphasis here because tracking isn't just a tool. It's a mirror. Each check mark, each tally, each X on the calendar is visible proof that you're showing up. It gives you something to protect. Once a streak begins, you don't want to break it. The question shifts from, should I do this today, to, can I keep this streak alive? That shift in mindset changes everything. But don't go it alone. Habits become significantly easier when you're surrounded by people who live them. Join a running club. Share your writing with a community. Participate in a reading challenge. Use a buddy system for workouts. The more social reinforcement around your habit, the less it feels like a chore, and the more it feels like a shared lifestyle. Finally, Clear introduces something that separates amateurs from professionals: the habit reflection, a weekly review. Every 7 days, pause and ask yourself, did I stick to my habits? What's working? What's slipping? What can I tweak? This reflective practice prevents your system from drifting off course. It brings your habits back into focus and ensures you're not just repeating actions mindlessly. You're actively refining a living system. Because sticking with good habits isn't about heroic effort. It's about crafting reliable rituals and protecting them with smart design. When your habits run smoothly in the background, your mind is free to dream, create, and grow. You're no longer fighting yourself every day. You're flowing. And that's how you build a life, not just a streak. Chapter 17, How an Accountability Partner Changes Everything. Here's something I've learned the hard way. You can have the perfect system, the best habit stacks, the ideal environment, the clearest goals, but if you're doing it entirely alone, in complete silence, with no one watching, no one knowing, no one caring, it becomes frighteningly easy to quit. Because when no one is watching, skipping becomes invisible. And invisible skipping is the most dangerous kind. James Clear addresses this head-on in this chapter. He introduces a powerful idea. One of the most effective things you can do to maintain good habits is to make yourself accountable to another human being. Not to an app, not to a calendar, to a person. Think about the difference. When you're the only one who knows about your goal, quitting is private. There's no consequence. No one notices. No one is disappointed. But the moment someone else is involved, someone who's expecting you to show up, someone who's checking in, someone whose opinion you value, the stakes change completely. Have you ever committed to something publicly and then felt the weight of that commitment pushing you forward? Maybe you told a friend you'd meet them at the gym. Maybe you announced a goal to your family. Maybe you posted something online about a challenge you were starting, and suddenly giving up wasn't just about you anymore. It was about them too. That's the power of being seen, and it taps into something ancient and deeply human. We evolved in tribes. Being cast out of the group meant danger, even death. So we learned to cooperate, to conform, to care deeply about how others perceive us. That instinct still lives inside us today. And when used wisely, it can multiply your consistency many times over. Clear shares a story about a man named Brian who created a habit contract with his friend. Brian committed to going to the gym regularly. If he skipped a session, he had to pay his friend $100. If he lied about going, the penalty jumped to $500. The genius of this setup wasn't just the money, it was the social cost. Someone else knew, someone else was watching, and that single fact made the habit feel real in a way it never had before. So how do you apply this in your own life? Clear lays out a simple process for creating a habit contract. First, write down exactly what habit you're committing to, when you'll do it, how you'll do it, and what the consequence is for missing it. Make it specific and clear, no ambiguity. Second, choose your accountability partner. This should be someone you respect, someone you wouldn't want to lie to, someone who is supportive but honest. They don't need to enforce anything. Their mere presence in the process is often enough. Third, add real stakes. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's a public announcement. Maybe it's losing a privilege. Maybe it's doing something mildly unpleasant. The consequence needs to be stronger than the temptation to skip. Not so harsh that it feels punitive, but strong enough that your brain takes it seriously. But accountability isn't just about one partner. Clear takes it further. He says the most powerful force isn't just having someone watch you, it's belonging to a culture where your desired behavior is the norm. Think about that. When everyone around you reads, you read. When everyone around you trains, you train. When everyone around you values health, discipline, creativity, or growth, those values stop being aspirations and start becoming expectations. They become the price of belonging, and humans will do almost anything to belong. So find your tribe, start a writing group, join a fitness community, create a morning routine challenge with friends, build a circle of accountability where showing up isn't the exception, it's the standard. There's a brain science layer to this too. We have something called mirror neurons, brain cells that fire when we see someone doing something as if we're doing it ourselves. That's why laughter spreads across a room. That's why one person yawning makes everyone else yawn. And that's why being around people who practice good habits makes you naturally start practicing them too. It's not about forcing yourself. It's about osmosis. And here's the deepest reason accountability works. It strengthens your identity. When someone else sees you show up consistently, they begin to believe in that version of you, and eventually you start to believe it too. You're no longer someone who's trying to work out. You're becoming an athlete. You're not trying to write. You're becoming a writer. You're not trying to be disciplined. You are disciplined. The presence of others amplifies this internal transformation, not through shame, through solidarity, through being seen and supported and held to a standard that you chose for yourself. So, who could be your accountability partner? Who in your life would you trust with this kind of commitment? And what tribe could you join or create that would make your desired habits feel like the most natural thing in the world? Because transformation doesn't just happen in private, it deepens in community. And when you find the right people to walk beside you, change doesn't just become possible. It becomes who you are together. Chapter 18. The Truth About Talent. All right, let's talk about something that I think secretly holds a lot of people back. Talent. Natural ability. That invisible thing that makes some people seem like they were born to succeed while the rest of us are scrambling to keep up. You've seen it, right? The kid in school who barely studied and still got straight A's. The athlete who made everything look effortless. The musician who picked up an instrument and within months was performing at a level most people couldn't reach in years. And maybe, just maybe, you looked at those people and thought, I could never do that. I'm just not built that way. James Clear tackles this question with honesty and nuance, and his answer might surprise you. He doesn't dismiss talent. He doesn't tell you that hard work always beats natural ability. But he doesn't say talent is everything either. Instead, he offers something far more useful, the concept of alignment. He writes, genes do not determine your destiny. They determine your areas of opportunity. Let that land. Your biology, your natural wiring, isn't a prison sentence. It's a compass. It points you toward the areas where you're most likely to thrive, where building habits will feel less like grinding and more like flowing. Think about it this way. Each of us comes into the world with a unique set of traits: reaction time, body type, emotional temperament, intelligence style, pain tolerance, energy levels, even how we respond to social situations. Some people can sit in quiet focus for hours. Others need movement and stimulation. Some people thrive under pressure. Others crumble. Some need structure. Others need chaos. None of these traits are good or bad. They're just different. And when you try to build habits that work against your natural wiring, everything feels like a struggle. It's like trying to swim upstream. You might get somewhere, but you'll be exhausted and frustrated the whole time. But when you find habits that align with who you naturally are, that's when everything clicks. That's when effort feels less like effort and more like expression. Clear introduces what he calls the Goldilocks rule, the idea that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right at the edge of their current abilities. Not too easy, because that's boring. Not too hard, because that's overwhelming. But just right. Just challenging enough to keep you engaged, just achievable enough to keep you going. Think about a video game. If the levels are way too easy, you get bored and quit. If they're impossibly hard, you get frustrated and quit. But when the difficulty is perfectly calibrated, when each level is just a little harder than the last, you can't stop playing. That's the Goldilocks zone, and the best habits live there. Clear uses the example of two athletes to make this point. Marcus has fast-twitch muscle fibers. He's built for explosive, short-burst activities like sprinting and powerlifting. Caleb has slow-twitch endurance muscles. He's built for marathons, long-distance cycling, and swimming. If Marcus forces himself into marathon training, he'll suffer. If Caleb forces himself into powerlifting, he'll plateau fast. Neither is wrong. They're just in the wrong lane. Have you ever been in the wrong lane? Have you ever forced yourself to build a habit that just felt fundamentally wrong for you? Not because you were lazy, but because it didn't match who you are. Maybe you tried to become a morning person when your brain comes alive at night. Maybe you tried group fitness when you're deeply introverted. Maybe you tried rigid scheduling when your creativity needs freedom. That's not failure. That's misalignment. And the fix isn't to try harder. The fix is to find your lane. Clear also brings in the big 5 personality traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. as a framework for understanding which habits will work best for you. Someone high in conscientiousness might thrive with detailed planners and checklists. Someone high in extroversion might do better with group workouts and social challenges. Someone high in openness might prefer creative journaling over rigid systems. Someone high in neuroticism might benefit most from calming, predictable rituals. The point is, don't fight your personality. Design your habits around it. Your system needs to match you, not some idealized version of you that you saw on social media, not someone else's morning routine, yours. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. What comes naturally to me? What activities leave me feeling energized rather than drained? What do I seem to learn faster than most people around me? Where do I find flow? That state where time disappears and I'm completely absorbed. The answers to those questions are your compass. They point you toward the habits that will stick, not because you force them, but because they fit. And here's the final piece that ties it all together. Clear says, when you can't win by being better, you can win by being more consistent. Talent might give you a head start, but systems, reliable, well-designed, aligned systems, are what carry you across the finish line. The most successful people aren't always the most talented. They're the ones who found their lane and then built systems that kept them moving forward. Day after day, year after year, they out-practiced and out-designed everyone else. So stop comparing yourself to people who are playing a completely different game. Find your game. Master your lane. Build habits that honor who you actually are. Because when your habits align with your nature, they stop feeling like discipline and start feeling like destiny. Chapter 19. The Secret to Results. That last. Make it part of your identity. We've arrived at the final chapter, and in many ways everything we've explored throughout this entire journey has been leading to this one idea. This is the deepest layer, the place where all the strategies, frameworks, and techniques ultimately rest. And it's simpler than you might expect. James Clear writes, "The ultimate form of intrinsic motivation is when a habit becomes part of your identity." That's it. That's the secret to results that last. Not better tools, not more discipline, not a new app or a fancier planner. It's becoming someone different at the core. Because no matter how clever your system is, no matter how perfectly you've designed your environment, if your identity remains unchanged, if deep down you still believe you're the person who always gives up, who never follows through, who isn't disciplined enough, your results will eventually snap back to match that belief. That's why this chapter matters so much. It's the foundation beneath everything. Clear describes 3 layers of behavior change. The outermost layer is outcomes, the results you want. Losing weight, writing a book, earning more money. The middle layer is processes, the routines and systems you follow. And the innermost layer, the one that drives everything, is identity, who you believe you are. Most people try to change from the outside in. They set a goal, force a behavior, and hope their self-image eventually catches up. But Clear insists that lasting transformation works from the inside out. Start with identity. Become the person first. Then watch as the habits naturally follow. Here's how this plays out in real life. If you say, "I want to lose weight," that's an outcome. You might start a diet, force yourself to exercise, and fight through it for a few weeks. But deep down, If you still see yourself as someone who struggles with health, who always falls off the wagon, who just doesn't have what it takes, eventually that internal belief wins. It always does. But what if instead you said, I'm becoming a healthy person? That's identity. And a healthy person moves daily. A healthy person chooses nourishing food. A healthy person rests and recovers. The behaviors aren't forced. They're expressed. They flow from who you believe you are. Can you feel the difference? One approach is fighting against yourself. The other is aligning with yourself. One is exhausting. The other is liberating. This is the power of identity-based habits. The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to write a page. The goal is to become a writer. And here's the mechanism that makes this work. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. One healthy meal is a vote for, I'm someone who nourishes my body. One morning journal entry is a vote for, I'm a mindful person. One push-up is a vote for, I'm someone who takes care of their physical health. One kind word is a vote for, I'm a compassionate person. No single vote will transform you. You don't need a unanimous decision. You just need a majority. Enough consistent evidence that your brain starts to believe the new story. And once that belief takes hold, once you genuinely see yourself as this new person, the habits don't feel like work anymore. They feel like self-expression. James Clear offers a beautifully simple two-step process. First, decide the type of person you want to become, not what you want to achieve, who you want to be. What kind of person could achieve those things naturally? What beliefs would they hold? How would they see themselves? Second, prove it to yourself with small wins. You don't need perfection. You need consistency. Each tiny action, each small moment of showing up is another brick in the foundation of your new identity. And here's something I find deeply hopeful. Many of us carry old stories about who we are. I'm not disciplined. I always quit. I'm bad with money. I'm not a creative person. I've never been able to stick with anything. These stories feel like facts. They feel permanent, unchangeable. But they're not facts. They're narratives, built from years of repeated experiences. And if habits built those stories, habits can rewrite them. Every time you meditate, you're becoming calm. Every time you organize your space, you're becoming orderly. Every time you show up despite not feeling like it, you're becoming consistent. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you're becoming brave. You are not stuck with the identity you have today. Identity is not a tattoo. It's a living, breathing thing that evolves with every action you take. Think of yourself as a sculpture waiting to emerge from the marble. Every habit is a chisel strike, revealing a little more of the person you're becoming. Of course, letting go of old identities isn't always easy. Sometimes we're attached to them, even the ones that hurt us. I'm the funny one who always drinks at parties. I'm the rebel who doesn't follow rules. I'm the overachiever who never rests. These identities served a purpose once. Maybe they protected you. Maybe they helped you belong. But they might also be holding you back from who you could become. It takes courage to let go. But beyond that discomfort lies freedom. The freedom to be more authentic, more healthy, more creative, more peaceful, more fully yourself. Clear closes with a formula that ties everything together. Identity plus system equals results that last. Without identity, your system feels hollow, like wearing a costume that doesn't fit. Without systems, your identity is just a wish, beautiful but weightless. But when you combine them, something extraordinary happens. Identity gives your habits direction and meaning. Habits give your identity evidence and proof. And together, they create a self-reinforcing loop that carries you further than motivation or willpower ever could. So what will you build? Not just a better schedule, not just a cleaner home, not just a new routine, but a stronger identity, a deeper belief in yourself, a truer version of who you are, because when you cast enough votes for being kind, disciplined, resilient, creative, patient, and brave, you don't just act like that person. You become them. And that is how habits shape destinies. Final reflection, a mirror to your life. And so, here we are, at the end of a journey that started with a simple block of ice and a rising temperature. We've walked through every chapter of Atomic Habits by James Clear, and along the way, something has been quietly happening. Not just in the ideas, in you. Because this was never really about productivity hacks. It was never about doing more, faster, louder. It was always about seeing yourself more clearly, understanding the invisible patterns that shape your days, and choosing gently, intentionally, one small action at a time to reshape them. Let's remember what we've discovered together. Small habits compound into extraordinary results, like pennies in a jar, like degrees on a thermometer, like drops of water wearing down stone. The tiny things you do every day are building something far larger than you can see right now. 1% better today doesn't feel like much, but over a year, it makes you 37 times better. That's not motivation. That's math. Systems always beat goals. Everyone has goals. Everyone wants success, health, love, freedom. What separates those who achieve from those who don't isn't the size of their dreams. It's the strength of their systems. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Design better systems, and better results will follow. Identity is the deepest lever of change. You can hack your habits all day long, but if you don't change who you believe you are at the core, the old patterns will always pull you back. That's why every action is a vote, not for what you want to have, but for who you want to become. Your environment shapes you more than your willpower. Stop blaming yourself for lacking discipline. Start designing spaces that make good behavior the default. Make the cues obvious. Make the friction disappear. Make the temptations invisible. When your environment supports your identity, consistency becomes effortless. You're never too far gone to begin again. Maybe you've tried before and failed. Maybe you started 100 times and quit 100 times. Maybe you carry stories about yourself that feel heavy and permanent. But here's the truth. Every single moment is a chance to cast a new vote. Every breath is a fresh start. You don't need to erase the past. You just need to start building a new future, one 2-minute habit at a time. I want to ask you something, and I really want you to think about it. Who are you becoming? Not who do you want to be someday. Not what goals do you want to achieve. Who are you becoming right now, today, with the habits you're currently living? Because your habits are not just things you do. They're a mirror reflecting who you are. Your weight reflects your eating habits. Your knowledge reflects your reading habits. Your relationships reflect your communication habits. Your peace of mind reflects your thinking habits. everything you are today is a product of everything you've repeatedly done. And everything you could be tomorrow starts with one small choice today. So as we close this journey, I want to leave you with something. Not a grand call to action, not a 5-step plan, just a gentle reminder. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to overhaul your entire life tonight. You don't have to become someone unrecognizable by next week. All you need to do is start. Small, quiet, intentional. One push-up, one page, one deep breath, one kind word, one moment of presence. Let that be the seed. Water it with consistency. Protect it with environment. Nourish it with community. And give it time. The rest, the clarity, the momentum, the strength, the transformation, it will follow. I promise you that. You've walked this far with me. That already says something about who you are. You're someone who seeks growth, someone who's willing to listen, to learn, to change, someone who believes, even if just a little bit, that a better version of themselves is possible. And it is. It absolutely is, not through dramatic explosions of effort, but through small, atomic, unstoppable acts of daily devotion to the person you're choosing to become. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring enough about your own life to invest this time. Now go. Take one small step. Cast one tiny vote, and never ever stop building, because your future self is watching, and I think they're going to be really proud of who you became. This was Atomic Habits by James Clear, and this, my friend, is just the beginning. Sleep well, dream deeply, and tomorrow start building the life you quietly believe is possible. One habit, one choice, one day at a time.